What's going on, guys? Bowman's back in the shop, but not back with some Bilsteins. We got some BP-51s from Old Man Emu. This is the full shebang for your 200 series Land Cruiser that's 2008 to 2021. This includes coilovers, shocks, springs, upper control arms, and even the mounting kits. Although this is a full kit, and what we'll be unboxing for you today is everything you can get if you buy the full kit. Each and every one of these parts are available individually. Now let's get to the fun part. Doug, I thought you said this thing was on. Oh, you did have to hit it harder, huh? All right, well, hard work's done. I guess I can tell you all about it. Like I said, we have the full kit out here, or half of the shocks of what you would get if you bought the full with UCA with coil spring kit. All of this is available individually, like I said. So, starting off at the front, these are a 2.5-inch body coiler, 2.5-inch body shocks. They come ready, set up for around 2 inches of lift on a stock weight vehicle, but they're adjustable from 1.5 inches to 2 inches of lift with a good allowance for additional weight. They can get away with, kind of one spring rate for a lot of weights because they have a huge range of compression and rebound adjustment. Before we jump too deep into the fancy parts of how these internal bypass shocks work, let's start easy and talk about the adjustment. Adjustments are on the body on these. You can kind of see on the coilover, but let's look at this shock here. They have 10 positions for compression and rebound. Rebound is big. Not a lot of shocks are giving you a rebound adjustment in the off-road market outside of bypass stuff. And that's a big deal for controlling your spring. And the wide range of adjustment for both compression and rebound is why these will be crazy comfortable, even if you have a big bumper and winch or not. Talking about tuning wise, they actually give you 2 different rear shock part numbers for these LC200s. One, and the one you're looking at now, although you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, is tuned for more stock weight or moderate weighted vehicles. And then they have a heavy load specific, a stiff valving option for people who are like armored or, have at least 500-600 pounds of weight, particularly in the rear, all the time. Getting to why I really like these a lot is they are an internal bypass. You heard me mention it, but I'm gonna tell you what it means now. You've probably seen bypass shocks or external bypass shocks where they had the tubes hanging off of the sides, and that is your position sensitive zone. When the internal piston in here at the end of the shaft moves oil upwards or downwards in the shock, it's gonna be prone to flow through the bypass tubes rather than the main valving in the piston, which gives you tunable zones for position sensitive dampening. Basically, you can set it up in the ride zone so that's nice and soft, and then ramps up in stiffness for compression and slows down rebound as you go to bottom or top out the shock. That means, particularly with adjustable shocks like these, you can set them up to be way more plush and comfortable while still having the support you need. It's the same design, but they built it all into the shock, which is great for packaging and how you can get that on a coilover as well. You can't fit bypass tubes in between springs. Maybe some people can. I don't know who's smart enough to figure that out. These instead use almost like a twin tube design, but they have bypass ports and individually tuned valves that allow flow through kidney-shaped ports within the shock around the piston. So they're doing the same thing, it's just all contained in here. That's why you get a shock that's around 2.5 inches in outer diameter, similar to most other King 2.5s, Fox 2.5s, you name it, but they have a 2-inch piston. Now you are losing out on some dampening force, but I do think they more than make up for it in the position sensitive dampening. In our testing, we found these to be one of the few shocks that are actually designed for people who are just driving down the trail like normal people. Now you can definitely smash on it, catch a mare, have some fun, and if tuned accordingly, they are great for that, but they're one of the few shocks out there in this 2.5-inch range that's really optimized for somebody who just wants to meander down the trail and be comfortable for many miles and many years to come. Downsides to this adjustability and this design, besides the 2-inch piston, although these adjustments allow for a lot of range of adjustment, they can be a little bit difficult to get to. Getting to why, and part of the reasons why these adjustments can be a little difficult, you do have to make adjustments on the body. These are a little tight. They give you a spanner wrench, which helps, but you really do have to work to move them. And it is definitely more difficult on the coilover, as depending on how you adjust them, sometimes the preload of the spring doesn't allow you good access to those adjustments. Now, you persevere, you get them set up the way you really like it, they are definitely worth the time you spend to do it. Going back to spring adjustments and weights, the adjustment does help allow you to keep the same spring and just make preload and dampening adjustments to account for the constant load you have in the front and in the rear. These are an aluminum body, so unfortunately, you really need to use this coil spring compressor on them, but ARB does their due diligence to give you recommended preload measurements to make it a little easier so you're not fighting it. Now, like I said, individual parts are available, but this is the full kit, so let's move on to the full kit stuff. I showed you a little bit of this adjustment wrench, or this adjustment spanner for the dampening adjustment, but that is only included in the mounting kit, along with the coilover spanner wrench and the reservoir mounts, only available in that separately if you want to piece it together. So if you're just buying coilovers and shocks, you're gonna wanna make sure you buy the mounting kit as well. They use real nice steel plates, good clamps, all the hardware you need, and you'll get the instructions to put it all together. So that makes it plenty easy. They give you pictures so you don't even have to read. Next thing, and we'll start with the front. If you go for the full Monty, you get Old Man Emu's upper control arms. They use a heavy duty greasable ball joint that lasts a long time, reduces deflection, and they also have these free pivot polyurethane bushings that are really good at reducing deflection as well. Last a long time, they're great. They're a tubular design, real strong, they're coated nice, you can't go wrong. Technically, you can probably get alignment back in spec at the 1.5 to 2 inches of lift these are designed to do, but I do think with the amount of travel they allow, you will probably see a little bit of bind with the stock ball joint, so that will allow for a little bit more travel, and it repositions it so you don't have to work as hard as for getting it aligned. Sometimes you do need to exceed some factory alignment specs, particularly for positive caster on these Toyotas, to clear larger tires more effectively. So although you'll probably be able to get into stock specs without an upper control arm on these, exceeding those probably isn't possible. And this is a great long-lasting solution that for all intents and purposes is better in every way than stock. So it's not gonna be something that adds a bunch of maintenance, noise, vibration, harshness, or any stuff you don't want in your suspension. Coming to the springs for the rear, and this is where things can get a little tricky for the kit. There are, I believe, a total of 5 rear spring options available to match the 2 different rear shocks. They range from basically stock to moderate loads for stock height, up to 3/4 of an inch and even up to 1,300 pounds of constant load. A lot of these LC200s get armored, so they gotta be sprung to handle all that additional weight. Now what we have here in front of us is the 2722 springs. These are 3/4 of an inch of lift. They call it their medium load. So for stock to, let's say, constant loads of about 200, 300 pounds or less, these are great. They'll give you about 3/4 of an inch of lift and are well within the 0 to 2 inch lift range of these rear shocks. Now, as I said, this whole kit can be pieced together. So if there's another spring you like, another upper control arm you like, we can put you together a kit that uses these great coilovers and shocks with an upper control arm or spring that better suits your needs, whether you want to go maybe a little higher or you want a different spring option that is better for your particular build. Sometimes you might want a little longer spring than these Old Man Emus for better articulation and stuff like that. Overall, I don't think this is a kit that you should sleep on. It's built really well. Longevity is great, and the engineering is top notch. The ability to get everything individually or as a whole kit makes it as easy or as difficult as you want it to be, and we got them in stock, baby. So if you have questions about these or anything else, you know who to call, you know where to go, shocksurplus.com.